Hey there, YouTube. I'm Jack, and this is Raw Tropical Living. Thanks for joining me today. Coming to you on a perfect spring day here from South Alabama, and those perfect spring days are winding down. We're descending into summer towards the end of this week, and we're basically living in hell for the next 5 or 6 months, so giddy up. Everybody's talking about, there's a few people up north that are always like, oh my God, I'm so envious of your weather. You won't be in a month or two. You won't be in 3 weeks. It's going to be brutal. But anyhow, today I want to talk about the main benefit of a raw food diet. Guys, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, appreciate it if you'd go down there and hit that red subscribe button right now. Then click on the little bell and check send notifications so you'll stay subscribed to the channel. I was watching a couple of videos this week, and then I kind of just started going down a rabbit hole and reading some stuff and whatever. Because like a lot of times, you know, I'm mostly just, I put food in my body, I see how I react to it over a long period of time, and I go from there. But I do find it helpful, and I'm able to help other people when I understand the why a little bit better. So I went in the main benefit of a raw food diet, in my opinion, because all the other things kind of flow from there, or for me anyway, is how it reduces inflammation, how it fights inflammation in the body, because most disease, whether it's cancer, heart disease, the autoimmune disorders, you know, just most disease, not all disease, most disease comes from, is related to chronic inflammation in the body. As simple as that. And a lot of the inflammation in the body is caused by our environment around us, the toxins we're taking in, and also a lot of the food that we're taking in. So what is inflammation? I wrote down, I wanted to read a good little description of exactly what inflammation, we think we all know what it means, and we mostly do, but inflammation is the body's natural defense against damaged cells, free radical damage, viruses, bacteria, and foreign substances. See, those free radicals and all that kind of stuff, that's what got me looking into this lifestyle in the first place. Or that's what actually just got me down my health journey like 8.5 or 9 years ago. Because I came to my health journey before I came to being vegan or being raw. So that was one of the things I just, back in the beginning, I looked into a lot. And I was just looking for anything. I was just randomly Googling, reading stuff on inflammation in the body. I would search out antioxidants and stuff, and then I would learn some of this stuff from here. Some of it didn't necessarily, you know, make sense at the time, but as I've gone on, it definitely does. And many foods, like I say, can trigger an immune response, which then causes the inflammation in the body. So much of the food that you're eating is just direct. I see people, oh, and also another one too, where inflammation is a big issue, is when it comes to pain. I've talked to people with arthritis before, just regular arthritis as opposed to, say, the immune stuff, you know, rheumatoid arthritis. Sometimes I forget words when I'm trying to think of them. But yeah, it's pain, disease, what have you. So what can we do to release this inflammation that causes disease, that causes pain, it causes whatever? Whole food plant-based foods in general are anti-inflammatory because they're antioxidant. For fruit. And this is something interesting too that I knew, but I wrote this down because I wanted to really stress this. It's the bright stuff, like the things, the whole food plant, some whole food plant-based is better than others. And hey, there's always going to be exceptions. There are some people that have certain allergies or whatever, that certain plant foods can cause inflammation. But in general, it's like the bright stuff, the bright colors, the berries. When it comes to fruit, the berries are definitely the best anti-inflammatories, or for reducing inflammation in the body. They have the most powerful antioxidants of probably any of the fruit out there. And for vegetables, it's the leafy greens. Those two things, the berries and the leafy greens, are powerful as antioxidants and getting that inflammation out of the body. But bright colors in general, think tomatoes. Tomatoes are, tomatoes, some people have a problem with tomatoes, so that might be the exception. But in general, I'm talking in general here, the tomatoes. Sweet potatoes, those beautiful orange sweet potatoes, if you're eating cooked. People always ask me if I mention a sweet potato. Well, how are you eating? And I know people will do something, they'll spiral that thing. No, I don't eat sweet potatoes raw. When I'm eating my sweet potatoes, I'm cooking them. But it's those bright colors. The processed food just doesn't do it. It's something. And once again, I mean, take processed food. Don't try to be absolutely literal, like even some of there's good food out there that's processed. I'm just talking about the food that's overly processed. You've got that long list of ingredients and what have you, and that kind of stuff that comes with the chemicals and the words that you can't pronounce, that is causing inflammation. It may be plant-based, it may be vegan, but a lot of that processed vegan stuff out there causes inflammation. Now, I go to a lot of places, I never talk about the processed stuff because I'm just happy people are eating plant-based. I'm happy people aren't killing animals. But as far as the health goes, yeah, you're not generally healing your body. You're not generally shedding that inflammation with the processed stuff. I mean, God bless, the Beyond Meats and I don't even know what they are. I've never had one, but those Beyond Meats and all the stuff, I'm thankful for those when I see them in the grocery stores because that gets people moving in the right direction. And it's a better choice. It's probably a better choice than going down to the KFC and getting a bucket or, rolling through the drive-thru at McDonald's and eating food that if you leave it in your house for 5 years, it'll still look about the same. So real food. We could take all these little buzzwords out of it, the raw food, vegan, this, that, whole plant-based foods, real food, from the ground, from the trees, what have you. But that's the stuff that's going to heal our body. I mentioned arthritis. I see it all the time, and I watch people that are, they have arthritis, and they have painful arthritis, and I see them taking in dairy. Dairy is probably more inflammatory to the body than meat is, or even eggs or whatever. But I just see them, I'm like, when I see somebody that's like almost crippled with arthritis, and they're, ingesting lots of dairy, they're eating lots of red meat and whatever, and it's like, well, you are feeding that pain. That's what you're doing with a lot of this food, is you're feeding the disease, you're feeding the pain. I'll always remember that very first book, the China study that I read by T. Colin Campbell. And that was powerful, like just the general idea of with these certain foods, you could manipulate the body. He had the rats that he was experimenting on, and they would have tumors. And he would turn them on and off, depending on what the diet they were given. And they would have tumors. And then he would put them on this whole food plant-based. No, I'm not sure if it was 100% whole. I don't know exactly how it went, but he'd feed them whole food plant-based foods. I'm not sure exactly what he was feeding them. And they would, the tumors would stop growing, and they would reverse, and they would shrink back down. And he did that just to play with it. He would do that back and forth a few times. Rat has a tumor, he reduces the tumor. Takes the rat off that diet, tumors come right back. So, and since I've done this, and that's why I like to really stress how I process all this stuff and how I use my body and how I feel. And I'm very observant. I pay very close attention to how each little bit of food affects me. And I can just tell, I look back before I started this lifestyle and started eating a whole food plant-based diet. And I think back to the little aches and pains, like my hands. My father had arthritis in his hands. It wasn't crippling, but towards the end of his life, he had pain and his joints were, swollen and what have you. I'd say even 10, 12, 15 years ago, I was starting to get, I started having soreness in my hands. I was starting to worry. I'm like, oh God, back not knowing what I didn't know at the time, or not being that aware of this kind of stuff, thinking, oh, well, that's just genetic. I've got a good chance of getting that too. My mother had arthritis in her knees bad her whole life. She could hardly squat down when she was in her 40s. So yeah, she always had a hard time with that. So I didn't want to, that was starting to freak me out. And I can tell now just the little things. It's not even big. It's not like God bless, I've never dealt with, like really severe pain, backs, knees, this and that and whatever. But I can tell the little aches and pains. And I can definitely just feel the lack of inflammation in my body because I feel good every day. Now, that we do the best we can. That's not to say we're bulletproof. I'm not saying I can't, I'm not saying I couldn't get cancer. I'm not saying I can't get sick. I'm not saying I'm not going to have pain, throughout the rest of my life being 56 years old. But like I always say, I think I've found my best shot at avoiding it or holding it off or lessening it, or whatever you want to put. So anyhow, this is just kind of a rambling one today. I was just making notes the last few days, and I said, well, I think I'm going to share some of this stuff. So anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this one today. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you later this week. Peace.